Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is John Doolin of getdoolin.com. I'm here today with Mike Chanat, and he'll correct me later on how to pronounce that and show proper ethnic respect. Mike is an EMT and has dedicated his life to serving others. And today we're going to talk a little bit about Mike's history, and we're also going to talk about Mike's future and where he's going. Mike, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you having me on and let me have this opportunity to get myself out there.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I want to thank you first for your service to your community because what you do and the fact that you have done it all through COVID, and yeah, I can't even. And I don't expect you to share, but I suspect you've probably saved a lot of lives in your day, and I thank you for all those folks and for what you do every day. It's a career choice that not a lot of people make, but thankfully enough people make it so that the rest of us have someone to call when something goes wrong.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Um, on behalf of all the EMTs and paramedics, it's thank you. Um, it it's more of a calling for us than a career or a job, especially for those of us that have been in it for any length of time. At this point, I'm like 35 plus years. I started off as an EMT with my college ambulance corps, and I know a lot of students are interested, and that's where they get their community service hours, and they begin. And sometimes they use that as a stepping board into other healthcare fields. I started off with that, and I continued, grew up, got into a paramedic program, got my paramedic certification, worked for a hospital in the city of New York for about 13 years. During that time, I transitioned into a police officer in New York City. I was around for the 93 bombing. I was around for the 2001 Trade Center, a couple of train derailments, bus accidents, a ferry accident. Like you said, you see the ups and downs. Um, that transitioned into a career with the volunteer fire service when I moved to Long Island with my wife and kids. Currently living up in Orange County, working in Rockland County as a paramedic. Recently, about a year ago, got promoted to lieutenant, and it allows me to actually make an impact in people's lives. One of the things I like to say is we don't save lives, but we do make a difference in people's lives. Sometimes we can't, despite doing everything correctly, save somebody, but we're able to make a difference in how we treat their family or how their loved ones are treated or the dignity that we give them as they pass to the other world.
That the history of the events that you have been through, they're things that the rest of us only read about or see on the news. When you serve such a large city like that,
Hmm.
it's remarkable. And I like how you put that, is that you can't always save people, but you can impact their lives. It's interesting because that's kind of how we met. Um,
Hmm.
we met on a social media platform, both kind of doing the same thing out there, just trying to influence people's lives, trying to give people the motivation that they need to maybe get up one more day and face a reality that is less than what they thought it was going to be. And
Yeah.
it's kind of why I wanted to talk to you today and bring you into my world a little bit, because I really admire what you're doing. And of course, I stumbled upon your profile, and it's outside of my realm because you are serving a niche community of trying to be a coach and a mentor to the EMT community. But it's interesting enough to me because you're out there creating your own material, which I respect. While I don't get as high tech and fancy, I come up with some PowerPoint slides that I convert over to JPEG.
Yeah.
Can you talk me through a little bit about how this door opened for you, where you have this calling, where you feel like, what, I think I can help people in a bigger way? Because the way I see it is you're helping people who are going to help people, and that's really huge.
Yeah. I remember back in September of 1989, it was the third Friday in September, and I was working a 4 to 12. And usually, like PTSD, strong feelings, strong emotions attach themselves to certain memories, and that's why you're able to recall them, whether they're positive and negative. In this case, it was very positive for me. I had just gotten my certification as a paramedic. I had just gotten my New York City REMAC credential to practice, and it was my very first day on a 911 ambulance. Prior to that, I had worked on a volunteer squad. I had worked with doing interfacility transports, but never 911. I walk into the ambulance, and my partner at the time was Abdo Namode, and Abdo put his hand out, shook his hand, and smiled at me after I had told him that I was extremely nervous and I didn't know what I was doing. And he just smiled and said, "Everybody's got to have their first day. Don't worry about it. You got to start somewhere." And he put me at ease. He relaxed me. And that was one of the first mentors that I kind of had that showed me how to treat others, to treat them with dignity. And as a side note, Abdo at that time was just a paramedic on the streets with New York City EMS, but he'd worked his way out up through the ranks where he became the chief of New York City EMS. He was in charge of the whole system. So this is an individual that I learned from, that I admired, and was able to follow. And from there, I always wanted to help other people. I knew what it was like to feel lost, and I didn't want people feeling like that, or like wandering around aimlessly, not knowing where to go. I wanted to be that guide for them, and to show them and to have them move up and believe in themselves sooner than later. One of the mantras that when I first started here on LinkedIn that I was using a lot, and I would end off my signature blocks with, was dream, lead, and inspire. Everybody's got to have a dream. You need somebody to lead you and to inspire you, and it was just kind of like a loop, kind of like recycling, and they one leads into the other, and like you said, these are the people that are going to help other people, and I want to help them so that they can help other people even more so.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's interesting, I don't want to refer to it in, kind of a morbid way, but it's almost like the circle of life,
Yes.
in the interesting visual that I have, because as you're telling the story, I'm imagining what actually happened in my own head, and just thinking about that hand reaching out to you on that first day,
Hmm.
and now the symbolism that you are now reaching your hand back to help pull a whole new generation into this world that you have. um, it's it reminds me of a quote, and I always forget, which is why I have my collection of memes, because I forget who actually said it. But the quote of, be that person that you needed.
Yes.
And in some cases, it's not about being the person that you needed when you were there. Sometimes it's about being that person that was there for you, paying that forward that someone did for you. And that has been, I know, in November I did that gratitude series, because I had that recognition that what is burning inside of me is only burning because someone lit that fire. Someone
Yep.
showed me the way. Someone reached that hand out to me and said, "Hey, all right, I see what you're trying to do there, but you're screwing it all up. Come with me. I'm going to show you how to do it right."
Exactly. I think it was Mahatma Gandhi that had said, "Be the leader that you need or that you want," and that's kind of where at one point a switch went off in my head, and it was time for me to get past feeling like an imposter, feeling like I wasn't worthy of anything, because I had been doing it for so long, and realized that I have lots of experience to share with other people. And at this point, a lot of times it's difficult to remember what it was like to be there. And I have to kind of reflect back and think about like those days where I met Abdo in September of '89, and I was very nervous. And I told a story, I think, on LinkedIn probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, where my first day with Rockland Paramedic Services, where I am currently, um, Taylor Egan had come up to me and she said, "Hi, I'm Taylor, welcome." And she was showing me around between calls at the station where everything was. And I remember feeling nice and part of a family and being welcomed in. And it made such an impression on me that I made it a point that every new person that I came across afterwards to welcome them to our company, to welcome them to our family, make them feel included, not excluded. Don't make them feel like they're sitting in the corner, scared and wondering. Bring them in, bring them into the conversation, involve them, show them, because it's very easy to forget. But if you think about it, you can go back to what was it like for me when I was there, and how can I avoid them having to feel like that, and to make them feel more confident in themselves and build them up, and to get them to become those leaders that I know that they are.
Yeah, that's refreshing. And there's in your profession, I'm sure that there's a lot of folks who kind of take that approach just for the mere fact of what you said earlier. It's kind of a calling where
Mm-hmm,
you don't wake up one morning and say, I'm gonna change my course unless you're feeling that desire, specifically with what you do, because um, you see a lot of the worst of life. You
mm-hmm.
you see people at their lowest point where they are looking for a hero, and you are literally that hero walking in the door. Um, and so to me, I admire the heck out of what you guys do, because I had an uncle who was a paramedic, and I saw how hard he worked to get through that school. And he had that servant mindset, that servant mentality. A lot of us like to say, I'm a servant leader. Well, Mike, you are a servant leader. I'm a leader. But there's no way I'm going to go stitch somebody up, or you know uh,
Understood.
be able to hold it together in some of the situations. I don't want to get too gory here, but um, it's amazing to me of what you're doing. And then this transition where you're at. And I know, guys of our age, that's kind of what we do, is we start looking back. And I love that you have a great positive attitude about this, because it's easy to slip into the mindset of this new generation just doesn't know what it's like. This new generation doesn't have the same work ethic. And in our conversations, I've never picked up on that from you. It's always, you just have a real positive way of putting your message out there. And I was curious, because that has to be hard to maintain if it's just not your personality of seeing the best in life, because you I worked collections for a small bit of my career, like
Mm-hmm.
6 weeks, and it was such a miserable job calling people who were at a low point in their life where they were behind on their bills. But to like, I can't even put into perspective some of the things you have to walk in on, but yet you keep such a positive outlook. Where do you think that was partly how you were raised? I mean, how do you go about staying so positive with everything you see every day?
I do contribute a lot of who I am to both my parents. Both of them were actually immigrants from what used to be Czechoslovakia, and they came over at different times. My father was a World War II veteran. He came over several times, but the last time that he came over and stayed permanently was when he was 18 years old. And at 18, he enlisted in the U.S. Army and went overseas and fought in Northern Africa, the Mediterranean, and in Italy. And when he came back, the government served him with his naturalization citizenship papers. So my father earned it with that. And I watched growing up him sponsoring people to come over, allowing them to stay at our house, and find a job, work for an apartment, get up on their own 2 feet, and then once they were ready to go on out onto their own, and then repeat that process again for somebody else. Give everybody a chance to be able to do something. Um, he believed in God. He believed in country, in duty to others, and I think a lot of that. Plus, my mother, um, when we would go to church on Sundays, after the 12 o'clock lunch hour was over, the coffee and cake, she'd be one of the last ones out because she'd be cleaning up tables, cleaning up after everyone, putting stuff away, asking how everybody else was doing. We were always doing something for other people. And that's just the way I came up. And I guess it was somewhat natural to kind of step into public service with that kind of a background and to be able to help others. But um, the changes in the careers were usually with the different things that I wanted to do. At times, I've tried to go away from EMS or public safety. I tried and I spent several years with the Home Depot, part of which was working in supply chain and logistics. Um, and I actually, believe it or not, find that a lot easier dealing with either a rolled over bus, a train wreck, or a shooting or something like that than having to get boxes out of a truck, get them onto a pallet, moving them around, putting them up in the air, pulling them down, sorting them out, putting them into an outbound truck and sending them out, and repeating that again and making sure that everybody gets what they need. So for what you do, my hat's off to the truck drivers, to the guys that are pulling, to you who are pulling your hair out, making sure everybody else is pulling everything. You guys keep the rest of the country going. We just have a small impact with what we do.
Well, I appreciate that. So, um, Mike, if someone were looking to be a client of yours, what's the ideal
Mhm.
client? Who is the ideal client for your business?
My ideal client is somebody who is either new to EMS. So it would be the EMT who's just starting out, or it would be the EMT who just became a paramedic and they're new to that, or somebody who's looking to advance their career and take that promotion, but they're not quite sure how to get to that promotion, or they're possibly even looking to transition out of EMS because EMS takes its toll physically on the body, not just mentally with the stuff that we deal with. A lot of times people have back injuries, knee injuries, and need to change. So anybody who's looking to transition, those are the people that I work with. I show them how to develop their resumes, their online presence, develop their brand, and things like that. And if they want to reach out to me, I'm on LinkedIn. They can send me a direct message. They can send me a connection request, and I'll get back to them and we can work things out.
Okay. Yeah. And then, Mike, I think if it's all right with you, what we'll do is put your contact information in the body of this so that anybody who's watching this can know how to reach out to you by email or by phone or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. So, um, I have a couple weird questions for you that I didn't prepare you for.
Uh, Listen, bring them on.
All
Love them.
right. So, first weird question is you get to pop back into the life of 10-year-old self, and the only thing you're allowed to say is spend more time with this person.
As a 10-year-old, probably would spend more time with my father because he worked overnights. So we kind of were ships passing in the night. He'd be coming home, I'd be going to school, but definitely would love to learn a lot more from my father.
Okay. And then 70-year-old you pops into your life right now. What is the one thing that 70-year-old you is going to tell you, stop doing this right now?
I would take 54-year-old me and go back to my 20-year-old self, which I could definitely do, and say, don't be afraid. Um, Take those promotional opportunities, um, believe in yourself. You have what it takes. Go out and take the world by the horns.
Okay, fair enough. Nice. So, Mike, if there's anybody out there hearing this message, what is the one thing you want them to remember about you?
Very good. Um, I'm here to help.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, Thank you for answering my questions. I'm very grateful. I love the fact that we've been able to have these conversations. They're very helpful to me to learn, but I think ultimately, if one person watches this and one person is able to find you and reach out to you and you're able to help them, then it was a success. And you'll find Mike's contact information in the body of this video. I will also share Mike's contact information everywhere this video is shared. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. Please, if you haven't already, please subscribe to it. If you do click the bell, you'll be notified every time a video is posted. And you can find me on all of the social media channels by using my handle, Get Doolin. That's GETDOOLEN. Thank you very much.